My friends call me the slide guy because I'm the only one who still opens PowerPoint for things that, by all rights, could be texts. I do it at work because I'm a project manager, and the only way I know to make 20 people nod in the same direction is to put boxes and arrows on a screen. I do it with my friends because it's a joke that never really stopped being useful. I made a slide deck for our fantasy football draft. I made a slide deck for a cabin weekend to convince 6 adults that yes, we did need to bring an extra extension cord. I made a slide deck for the time we argued about whether Die Hard is a Christmas movie and ended up with a tiebreaker slide that said, let's just drink cocoa. So, when they planned a surprise birthday party for me at a bar in Capitol Hill with sagging plants and string lights that looked perpetually out of season, it made sense that someone texted me a picture of a cake emoji and a projector and said, "We're roasting you. Prepare your rebuttal." It was the kind of thing our group did. It's also the last thing I wanted to do that week, because my stomach had been a drum for 3 days, and the beat didn't match any song I knew. Her name is Maya. We met on a Tuesday at a hardware store in Seattle, where I was trying to pick the right grade of sandpaper for a dresser I'd inherited, and she told me to stop flirting with grits and pick 120. I said I liked decisive people. She said she liked guys who didn't call themselves guys. 2 months later, she knew where I kept the good potholders. 1 year later, she knew the complicated stuff, like how my dad used to tape a quarter to a birthday card and say, "For luck," and how I will cry at a song if there's a fiddle in it, even if the lyrics are about nothing at all. She's a marketing coordinator for a small outdoor brand that thinks posting pictures of dogs in flannel is a business model. She's good at the part where you make people feel seen, and bad at the part where you remember. You promised yourself to stop pleasing rooms that don't care whether you leave. When we moved in together last spring, she made our tiny apartment in First Hill feel like a place people choose on purpose. She bought a cast iron pan that took me a week to season properly and a secondhand rug that looked like it knew secrets. She taped Polaroids to our fridge until the metal disappeared behind squares of the life we were making. Her on a ferry with hair in her mouth, me holding a cake with a broken candle, our friends with faces red from the sun at a Sounders game. The thing about living with someone you love is that small changes are huge. A cough in the night is a meteor. A new smell is a foreign country. A word you've said 1,000 times can slide sideways and break its ankle in the doorway. It wasn't one thing with Maya. It was a handful of little slides and scrapes that didn't make a wound until I realized I couldn't explain why I was bleeding. On a Thursday, she said she was doing a girls' night with Jess and Priya, 2 women from her office who think charcuterie is a personality. I offered to be her ride because parking is a myth on that end of town, and also because I like the way she squeezes my hand when she's about to get out of the car and says, "You don't have to walk me in, I'm a woman of the city." She kissed me and said Jess would swing by to pick her up. "They want to try that new place with the pink cocktails and the ferns," she said. "I'll probably do 1 drink and come home early. I'm wiped." I said okay because what else do you say? And I heated leftover chili and watched a documentary that made me feel smarter than I am. Around 9, my phone buzzed on the coffee table. I'm not the kind of person who sets up bank alerts for everything, but my student loan era taught me to keep notifications on for charges over $100. The text said, "Purchase for $167.43 at Orchard and Ash." I could see the address, Broadway E. The new place with the ferns. Not a big deal, not by itself. 3 people, 2 cocktails each, and something that wasn't a salad, and you're already doing math with the wrong number of digits. I put the phone down and told myself to get another bowl of chili. At 11,022, I got a text from Maya, heading home soon. It came with a heart and a taco emoji for no reason. I put my phone face down, went to brush my teeth, and told the drum in my chest to shut up. At 12,006, I heard her keys. She came in quietly, tiptoeing the way you do when you love someone sleeping in a room you shape together. I pretended to be asleep because I didn't want to be the person who ruins a night by asking what appetizer cost 50 bucks. In the morning, she was soft with me in that hungover way that sells the lie you want to buy. She made coffee and sat backward on a chair with her chin on the backrest and said Jess's new haircut was a decision and Priya had finally told off her manager and, oh my god, the dessert was basically cheesecake in a glass. She kissed my neck and said she loved me and that I am the only man she knows who can assemble IKEA without swearing. I laughed, which is the worst part. I laughed because it was easier than saying the thing that had been building a nest in my mouth. Saturday morning is laundry morning because I am not a chaos person. I sort whites and darks, and then a third category for the things Maya calls hand wash, and I call the pile I pray over. I was half watching a soccer game on my laptop, half stuffing our week into the machine, when a receipt slid out of the pocket of her coat and fell onto the kitchen floor like it had been waiting to join the scene. I picked it up and didn't inhale at first because I wanted to be the kind of person who doesn't look. Then, I looked. It wasn't a credit card authorization slip. It was the itemized printout that restaurants hand you if you ask for a copy for a complaint later. Orchard and Ash, Friday. 2 entrees, 1 appetizer. A bottle of Pinot Noir that cost more than the first 2 car payments I ever made. 1 dessert with a name so earnest it should have apologized. Server, Kim. Guests, 2. I turned the paper over as if the back might say, just kidding. The total read $167.43, which was exactly the number in my phone, minus tip. The signature under name. The server had written Maya's first name and last initial. Under notes, in Kim's tidy block letters, anniversary treat, comped dessert. I sat on the floor with a hand on the machine as if it needed comfort. The kitchen smelled like the soap we buy that promises to be sea breeze, but is really just blue. I smiled the sort of smile people make when a child tells them a knock-knock joke that reveals they have no idea what a joke is. Then I stood up slowly, set the receipt on the counter, and told myself quietly, there is another explanation. Your brain is a thief. It takes your piece and tells you it found it on the ground with holes in it. After lunch, I met up with my friend Gabe to get a haircut at the place that plays The National on vinyl and pretends not to be pretentious. He asked me what I wanted for my birthday, besides to be forgiven for getting older. I said to not be a person who checks receipts. He said too late. I told him about the bank alert and the paper with Kim's handwriting. He said maybe the server typed 2 but meant 3, and then I told him about the note, anniversary treat. He looked at the mirror like it was going to tell him what to do. Do you think, he began, and then cut his own sentence the way he cuts hair, in a clean line that means you won't notice the seam in 2 days. I don't know, I said. I don't want to know like this. Talk to her, he said. You always say you're a person who talks. I am until I'm not, I said. Sunday we made pancakes and walked to the farmer's market even though everything in February is mud and kale. She bought tulips like she was the sort of person who keeps flowers alive to the end of their promise. She threaded her arm through mine and we made fun of a couple in matching rain boots, and I convinced myself that maybe I had read too much into round numbers on thin paper. We got home and she tucked a tulip behind my ear and I kissed her and took the flower out because room for romance, room for oxygen. That night, while she showered, I sat on the edge of our bed and stared at her phone on the dresser. I am not a snooper. I am a grown adult with a job and a face and a whole head of ethics that look good at parties. I also know how to open Google Maps and tap my profile picture and select your timeline. 2 months ago on a road trip, I had shown her that it will draw a line for you from the coffee shop where you made a bad decision to the overlook where you made a bad decision to the overlook where you decided it was a good one after all. She said it was creepy. Then she said it was useful because she kept forgetting where she'd been, which she meant as a joke, and I accepted as permission to laugh. I put both hands on my knees and told myself not to. Then I did because I needed the kind of truth that doesn't wear makeup. I opened Maps, tapped her profile, the little circle with her face that my phone knows because we share a family album. She hadn't logged out. I tapped your timeline. A map unfurled, familiar, the shape of our city like a puzzle I didn't want to finish. Friday glowed as the last day with a path. It showed our apartment as her origin point at 7,008 p.m. Then a bright blue line west, not south toward Jess's, but up and over to Broadway. The red dot sat on Orchard and Ash like a blinking lighthouse. Below the map, the timeline listed the stops: home, Orchard, and Ash. Home. It even noted the time spent at the restaurant: 2 hours, 12 minutes. Under transportation, it made a little car icon and guessed at the route. Under visited with, it had nothing, because Google doesn't invent company for you even if you ask. I took a screenshot, printed it at work the next morning in grayscale so it just looked like lines and a dot, and slid it into a plain envelope along with the receipt. No arrows, no dramatic red circles, no clip art, just 2 pieces of paper that told the same story in different fonts. I sealed the envelope and wrote on the front in my neatest print, "For us." When I talk about the party, I want you to picture the kind of room where people you love feel taller. Brick wall, good lighting, the smell of rosemary fries and spilled beer, and someone's expensive cologne. The bar had a private back area, the staff called the library, because 2 shelves of sad hardbacks made it look smarter. Our friends decorated with those tissue paper pom-poms that seem like a good idea until you are the person who has to assemble them. There was a homemade banner that said "Happy Ethan" in letters that balked at gravity. Someone made a playlist with songs from the year we met, and songs from the year I learned to like vegetables, and songs from the year we lied about our ages at a concert even though no one was checking. They had a cake with a candle that sparked, and a joke I knew Gabe had written because it was longer than it needed to be. When I walked in, and everyone yelled, and some of them yelled quietly because they're not yellers, Maya looked at me the way people look at you when they hope you haven't seen them looking at you. The room had built itself around her. She wore a red dress. The internet sold her, and a lipstick that made people use the word classic. She clasped her hands and did a little hop and kissed me on the cheek and whispered, "Happy actual birthday," like the calendar wouldn't have noticed otherwise. I hugged everyone. I told the same small jokes 6 times because the room demanded them. Someone handed me a beer, and someone else handed me a shot, and I picked the beer because I am 33 now, and my body has opinions. Maya floated the way she does, not clinging, not ignoring, just present enough to tell the world she was with me without making it feel like a territory. She squeezed my hand when she passed, then moved to talk to Jess, then turned back to laugh at something Gabe said with his hands. Halfway through the toast portion, yes, there were toasts, because my friends do not know how to leave an evening alone. Gabe did the thing where he lives for a microphone and dies by it. He made fun of my slide decks and thanked me for making a packing list for the cabin trip that included earplugs for people who snore and people who think they don't. He ended with something earnest and short that made my throat do the heat thing. Then Jess stood on tiptoe and said I was the most reliable person she knew, and also that I should stop pretending I don't like karaoke because evidence suggests otherwise. Priya said I make a mean shakshuka. Someone I barely know from a softball team I abandoned said I once helped him move a couch that had not wanted to be moved by anything but gravity, and I was gentle with inanimate objects, which made the whole table nod like this was equality. Maya didn't take the mic. She met my eyes while other people spoke and gave me the little nod that says I'm here. It is a second language between 2 people who have shared a bed long enough to know what a breath sounds like when a memory sits down on it. When the toasts ended and the room went soft with relief and cake, I touched her wrist lightly and said, "Can I steal you for a minute?" I said it the way I say it when I show her a draft of a thing I've made and want her to tell me which sentence isn't doing its job. She smiled, like the scene in her head had us kissing in a doorway, and followed me toward the back. The library was half dark and smelled like old paper and lemon cleaner. There was a metal table in the corner that had once been a dining table if you squinted and ignored the gum stuck to its underside. I set the envelope on it, then leaned my hands on the edge so I wouldn't put them in my pockets and turn into a boy. "What's this?" she asked, but gently, because we speak in soft voices when rooms change their rules. "2 pieces of paper," I said. "They're small, but they kept getting loud in my head." She looked at the envelope like a rabbit looks at a shadow. "Ethan," she said, "what did I do?" "I don't know yet," I said. "I want to hear you before I decide what happened." I opened the envelope and slid out the receipt and the printed map. I didn't narrate. I put them side by side, horizontal, so she could see 2 truths that didn't need my voice. I watched her face do the math of a moment she hadn't expected to do in a room like this. She looked at the receipt first. I could see the second she recognized the tip line and her name in someone else's hand. Her mouth made a shape like a word she couldn't pick. Then she looked at the map. She knows how timeline works because I'm an evangelist for knowing things about yourself even when you don't like them. Her eyes tracked the blue line to the dot and back again. She put one finger on the dot as if pressing would change it into a different dot. The room was quiet, except for a party happening 40 feet and 3 walls away. I could hear Gabe's laugh do the thing where it reaches for the ceiling. I could hear someone chant my name while trying to get people to take a shot on my behalf. It was night, and it was my birthday, and in that little library the only light was the one above the metal table and the voice in my chest that had finally learned to talk without breaking something. She took a breath and lifted her eyes to mine. "I can explain," she said, and the words hung there like a bridge to somewhere I didn't trust. "I want you to," I said, because that part was still true. She reached for the receipt, then stopped, then tucked her hands under her elbows like she was trying to keep them from leaving. "It was supposed to be 3 of us," she said. "Jess, Priya, me." Then Priya bailed because she got stuck at work. Jess and I went anyway. We ordered too much because we didn't want to be the table that split a salad. We saw a bottle special. It was stupid. 2 entrees, I said. My voice wasn't mean. It was a level tool on a wall. "Yes," she said. "I know how numbers look." "An anniversary treat," I said. "A server wrote that, Maya." She flinched like I'd put a hand on her shoulder without telling her. "Kim was making a joke," she said, but she didn't believe it either. She said we were cute, and Jess said we weren't together, and Kim said anniversary treat then because she had a script, and she stuck to it. I didn't write that. I said nothing, because there was a heat in my face, and living with heat has never made me smarter. "And the map," I said after a beat. "You told me you were at Jess's after for a movie." "We walked," she said. "We cut through Cal Anderson, then her street, then a lift to her place. Then she asked me to go back to the restaurant because she thought she left her scarf, and we did, because I am an idiot, and then I went home." The timeline didn't show 2 trips. It showed 1 route there, 1 route back. The dot was steady for 2 hours. Google doesn't mark when you leave a scarf in a booth. "I love you," she said, sudden like a flare. "I know what this looks like, but I love you. I know that, like, I know my own name." I wanted to say, "I know you love me," like a person in a movie who surprises himself with restraint. What came out was the thing my therapist once told me when I asked how you know if you're lying to yourself. The story should make your body relax, not seize. The version of this where I'm fine doesn't exist, I said, and something in me clicked into place with the sentence. Her eyes glittered like she was deciding whether to cry. She didn't, because Maya cries for dogs in documentaries, not for herself. "So what do you want to do?" she said, and it sounded like both a challenge and a plea. "I'm not going to make a scene," I said. "Not out there. I'm not going to do the thing where people find out about us when someone flips through photos and sees my face in a mirror I can't recognize. I'm going to blow out candles and say thank you because people I love showed up for me. Then I'm going to put on my coat, say goodnight, and go home alone. You can stay and tell whatever story you want, but I won't be in it. Her mouth opened, then closed, then opened again. Don't ruin your own party, she said, small. Parties get ruined when people lie, I said. Not when people tell the truth. She looked down at the papers again like maybe they would have sprouted mercy while we talked. Her fingers made a little movement as if to push them away, then stopped like even that might be too loud. Can we at least talk tomorrow? She said, and I realized too late that this was probably the first time in her life she had been called into a room and handed evidence that didn't care how charming she is. We can, I said, and I meant it because I'm not an executioner. I am a person who builds slides and tries to make rooms kinder even when the news isn't. Behind us, someone shouted my name again. The wall hummed with the life we'd left on the other side. I could picture Gabe in a paper crown and Jess with a fist under her chin, watching the door like she could rewrite tonight with the right expression. In here, it was just Maya and me, and a table and 2 papers and a sentence I hadn't said out loud yet that would end something that had not deserved to die, and also had. She took a breath like a swimmer at the edge of the pool and nodded once, like a soldier asked for a truth she didn't know how to fight. Okay, she said, okay. I slid the receipt and the map back into the envelope and tucked it into my jacket. I straightened the wobbly metal table because if I can't fix the big things, I fix the ones with screws. She laughed once, a tiny sliver of the person who told me off in a hardware store about grit, and then it was gone. Do you want to go back out first, or should I asked. You, she said. It's your name on the cake. I nodded, put my hand on the doorknob, and paused long enough to say a sentence out loud that I'd been rehearsing quietly so I wouldn't say it in the wrong room. I'm not angry, I said. I'm done. Her shoulders lifted and fell. I hear you, she said, and I believed her in the way you believe a weather report that says rain after you've already seen the clouds. I opened the door and walked toward my friends and their soft, stupid banner with my name on it, toward the cake and the song and the taste of wax, toward the room where 12 people were practicing how to love someone by showing up. I smiled like a person who has practiced smiling, and I let them hand me a knife, and I cut a piece the size of an apology, and the room cheered because rooms cheer when you ask them to. And somewhere behind me, a library door closed very quietly around a woman, a map, a receipt, and the last bit of a story that wasn't going to be told on a screen tonight. I blew out the candles. People clapped, the kind of clap that's more about love than rhythm, and someone smeared a dab of frosting on my cheek like we were all still 22. I let the song happen to me. I tasted the wax in the sugar and the rosemary from the fries in the air and thought about the envelope in my jacket like it was a hot coal I had learned to hold. I hugged the room goodbye in small loops. I thanked Jess for the playlist and Priya for the banner and the softball guy for remembering the couch story with a level of detail that made it sound heroic. Maya stood by the end of the bar, hands wrapped around a glass of water, eyes glossy in a way other people would call soft and I would call armored. I kissed her on the temple because not every goodbye has to torch the furniture. She kissed the air next to my cheek like the choreography of affection could cover for the absence of it. I told Gabe I'd text him tomorrow about breakfast. He said, "If you think I don't already have a reservation, you don't know me." And then, because he knows me, he lowered his voice. "You all right?" "I'm going to be," I said. Outside, the night was soft and wet and Seattle about it. The street shone like somebody had polished the asphalt for a camera. I walked home with my hands in my pockets and my shoulders not trying to be taller than they are. An ambulance wailed 3 blocks over and then stopped. A bus hissed. 2 kids ran past me arguing about whether a bagel is a sandwich. I wanted to tell them I used to have opinions that empty, and that was not a bad way to live. At the apartment, I didn't turn on the overhead light. I put the envelope on the table and the paper crown someone had made me beside it and sat in the glow from the microwave clock like a penitent. I poured water, drank half, poured it out, poured another. In the bedroom, I pulled my suitcase from the closet and put it on the bed and opened it not because I wanted to leave in a dramatic flounce, but because I know myself. If I didn't start with the small things while my backbone still remembered how to be a backbone, I'd wake up tomorrow and try to make a spreadsheet out of a heartbreak and miss the part where you're supposed to feel it. I packed like a person who's done this before, even though I hadn't. Shoes first, then t-shirts, then the sweater my sister knitted badly that I love anyway, because it looks like it tried. I took the national parks map off the wall and rolled it into a tube and rubber banded it so it wouldn't crack. I took the cast iron pan out from under the stove and held it like a question, then put it in the talk later pile because there are some negotiations you don't start at midnight. I slept on the couch because it felt honest. When I woke at 6, the room was blue and quiet, the way rooms are when a decision moves in and asks for the good chair. I made coffee. I sent Gabe a text that said, "Rain check." He replied with a thumbs up and a photo of pancakes that meant he'd eat for 2 and worry for 1. I cleaned the spill on the counter where we always swear we'll be neater and are never neater. At 9, my phone buzzed. "Can we talk, Maya?" "Yes," I wrote. "Here or elsewhere?" "Here," she wrote. "I'm 2 blocks away." The door opened, and she came in like a person remembering how to live in a house where the furniture had shifted. She saw the suitcase on the bed and flinched, then stood a little taller like, if she straightened her spine, gravity would reconsider. We sat at the table like 2 adults auditioning to be the kind of adults we admire from a distance. "I couldn't sleep," she said. "I slept," I said, and the answer surprised both of us. She touched the edge of the envelope with one finger and then withdrew it like it had teeth. "I thought about what I should say that would make you stay," she said. "I made lists in my head. I did the thing where I tried to make it your fault for caring about math." I waited. When you love someone long enough, you learn that waiting is sometimes the only true sentence available. "I lied," she said, flat, not fishing for absolution. "I didn't eat with Jess. She bailed and I didn't want to go home and feel boring. So I texted someone who always says the right thing about not being boring. We had a bottle of wine because I wanted to feel like a person in a movie who makes a wrong decision taste like a good one. Kim wrote, anniversaries because he said something about, it's been a minute. And I laughed and the server wrote the word a stranger would write. We split a dessert because it felt like a way to make the bill say romance instead of guilt. I told myself it would stop at dinner. It didn't. It also didn't turn into the thing it could have. I stopped it. I am not saying that to be applauded. I am saying it because if I'm going to lose you, I want to lose you telling the version where I at least managed to leave a room I shouldn't have entered. I'd prepared for a denial, a performance, a rerun of our library scene with different lighting. I hadn't prepared for a sentence that fit the shape of the 2 pieces of paper exactly. I let it land. Truth can make you angrier than a lie because it uses your own restraint against you. I don't want to be the person who opens the envelope and narrates your life back at you, I said. I'm not leaving because the receipt says 2 entrees. I'm leaving because you wanted to be someone else and you did it in a way that made me a prop. She nodded like a pupil told to circle verbs. I know, she said. It's a gross sentence to hear. It's a worse one to say out loud about yourself, but I know. Okay, I said. I felt the click in my chest again, the latch finding itself. What now? She asked. No drama, no pleading, a logistics question. Now we divide the stuff, I said. You can have the plants and the good rug and the Polaroid of your cousin's baby that your mom will notice if it goes missing. I'll take the map and the cast iron and the bookshelf because it used to be mine, even though you made it look like something someone chose. We call the landlord and figure the deposit and who's on the hook for May. I'll move my clothes today and the rest over the weekend. You keep the apartment because you curated it. I'll find a sublet so I don't do something stupid, like move in with Gabe and turn into a living cliche. She exhaled, a sound that was relief and regret, and the math of two people subtracting a life. Okay, she said. Is there a version where I get to tell our friends that we're okay? Not together, just okay. There's a version where you tell the truth and it doesn't hurt my name, I said. That's the only version I care about. She nodded. I can do that. I stood and walked to the bedroom and came back with the pan, because why not? We both laughed at the sight of me holding cast iron like a bouquet. She wiped her eyes with the heel of her hand. We made an inventory on a legal pad because that's who we are. We put little squares next to line items and checked them off because checking boxes has always felt like the opposite of drowning to me. By noon, I had 2 suitcases and a box labeled "Books to Survive" by the door. Gabe arrived like he'd materialized from a text and hugged me in that way men learn late, with the chest first and no slap on the back to cover tenderness. He took 1 suitcase without asking questions and told Maya she still owed him a rematch at darts because she cheated with her eyes last time. She smiled, grateful for the fiction. We did not draw up a custody schedule for the friends. Grown adults can choose a bar. The group chat can be 2 rooms that share walls. People are complicated. They'll figure out which party to attend without asking for a ruling. If you have to write policy for hearts, you've already lost. I subletted a place on Pike that had a window with an attitude and a futon that had seen things. The landlord was a musician with a real job and a habit of leaving drumsticks on the counter. I bought a cheap lamp that makes corners look honest. The first night I stared at the ceiling and waited for the grid of my life to realign. It didn't. It also didn't collapse. I slept like a person who had told the truth. That has its own brand of exhaustion. It's better than the other kind. Work adjusted around me silently because offices are good at that. Projects absorb shock the way a braced building does. I made a slide deck about resource allocation that actually popped, and my boss sent a thumbs up in a gif of a raccoon typing. After 3 days of radio silence from the group chat, Jess texted me directly. Do you want me to hate her or just stop inviting her to things for a bit? I wrote back, be kind, take your time, treat me like a person, not a plaintiff. She sent back, copy, counsel. On Friday, I walked past the bar with the library room on my way to get noodles and stood outside long enough to decide if I was torturing myself or just giving a moment its due. The same sad hardbacks were probably still in there, dust motes pretending to be ambiance. Inside, somebody else's surprise party would happen. Somebody else would blow out candles and think in that strange double exposure way we think on our birthdays. This is just another Thursday, and also somehow it counts. 2 weeks later, I met Maya for the deposit exchange and the key drop. We did it in the courtyard so the building could witness our competence. She handed me a manila envelope with half the deposit in crisp bills I didn't need to count, and a roll of quarters for the laundromat because she knows how my brain keeps tallies. I gave her the mailbox key on a ring with a miniature space needle. I took my stuff off the fridge, I said. You might want to leave the magnets. They're all yours, except the one of the goat. That's mine. Obviously, she said, and for a second, the joke was our language again, and we let it be because killing every flower in a garden doesn't make the soil better. Can I ask you a selfish question? She said as we turned to go. Sure, I said. Did you tell them? She asked. About the receipt, the map. No, I said. I told them it was a private breakup and we were kind to each other in the parts you can be kind in. If anybody asks for more, I'll say the word no like an adult. Thank you, she said. And she meant it in the way you mean it when someone gives you back a version of yourself you can live with in public. We hugged. It was awkward and human and correct. She walked away and I didn't count her steps. Spring practiced on the city. I learned the names of the plants outside my window and promptly forgot them, and learned again because the older I get, the more okay I am with being a student forever. I made dinner on a hot plate that took itself too seriously. I bought a secondhand bike from a guy who used the word retro, unironically, and rode it down to the water to watch fairies behave like patients. I added a new slide to my personal deck, the one no one sees, that I called Rules for Me. Document what you saw, not what you were afraid of. Don't confuse surprise with evidence. Fix wobbly tables. Love people louder than maps, and if you have to choose between being right and being done, close the door and go for a walk. I didn't meet someone new right away. That's not how it works for most of us, not being paid by a script. I did, however, start showing up at my friends' trivia nights again, because I like being wrong in public, in low-stakes rooms. At one of those nights, a woman on another team yelled out the wrong decade for a music question, and then laughingly corrected herself before the host did. She wore a denim jacket and the kind of smirk that means she reads the end of the book first. Later, we argued about whether an espresso counts as a dessert if you drink it after 9. Her name is Tamsin. She teaches 8th grade science, which means she knows exactly how to say, "sit down," to a room and make it sound like love. A month after my birthday, the library room got booked for Gabe's promotion party. He texted me before sending the invite. "You good being in that room?" I replied. "I fixed the table." He sent back, "Of course you did." I brought cake the size of my better judgment and stood in the doorway with a beer and felt my body stay level. Halfway through, Gabe gestured at the projector like a conductor, and I took the clicker and put up 3 slides about how he's the rare creature who can schedule a meeting and make it feel like a gift. I got a laugh on the second slide and a small, real cheer on the third. When people went back to clapping, I looked at the metal table and rubbed my palm over the place where a wobble used to live and thought, there's a lot you can fix with a shim if you get to it in time. Later that night, Jess slipped me an envelope like she was sliding contraband across a border. Inside was a print from one of the Polaroids we'd taken last winter. Me and Maya on a ferry, hair in our mouths, both of us squinting into a future we hadn't yet named. On the back, Jess had written nothing. I stuck it on my fridge with the goat magnet and didn't read a moral into it. Not everything is a parable. Some things are just proof you existed kindly for a while. The only artifact I kept from the party that broke us wasn't the receipt or the map. It was the paper crown with Happy Ethan in letters that leaned into each other like they were doing their best. Sometimes I put it on for a minute while I make coffee and then take it off before anyone can see, because the joke is for me now, the way some kindnesses are. If you were in that library with the receipt and the map, would you have walked back into the party and called for silence? Or would you have cut the cake and left quietly like I did? Would you have told the whole group what you knew, or kept the envelope between 2 people and a table that no longer wobbled? Tell me how you'd have handled it in the comments, and if this story kept you listening, hit like and subscribe so the next person who needs a private win can find one.